It is, of course, early December, which means that Japanese whaling fleets are gearing up for another journey to the Southern Ocean. When they get there, the anti-whaling activist group Sea Shepherd will be there to greet them, and they're warning the protesters that they are going to pull out all stops to end the hunt. The government is saying that the group should avoid violent behaviour, as you would expect. It's now taken legal action against Japan in the International Court of Justice in a bid to bring an end to that country's whaling program in the Southern Ocean. But a judgment isn't expected until 2013. So, in the meantime, Sea Shepherd campaigners are taking it upon themselves to protect the whales. Sky's Perth reporter Mike Hopkin took to the seas to meet with Captain Paul Watson, who's leading the fight.
The Japanese whaling industry has said they're going to take an aggressive stand to defend their outlaw whaling activities down there, so it could lead to, and escalate to some serious confrontations.
I mean, you've already had serious confrontations. There was the sinking of the Ada Gill. Are you worried that something as serious as that, or possibly even worse, might happen this year?
Well, one thing we have discovered, whatever the Japanese do, they'll get away with, and we're severely restricted. We have to operate within the boundaries of the law, and we have to ensure that we don't injure anybody.
There have been some accusations from some quarters that your tactics, some of them are designed to provoke aggression in the Japanese fleet. I mean, what's your response to those kind of comments?
I think when you target endangered whales in an established international whale sanctuary in violation of a global moratorium on whaling, that's provocation. We're simply upholding international conservation law against their illegal activities. We shouldn't be down there. The governments of the world, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, those countries that are signatories to these treaties should be upholding these treaties. But the fact that they're not means that we have to, and we have to take those risks. Somebody has to protect the sanctuary. I mean, what is it about the word sanctuary that nobody seems to understand?
Now, you've had a couple of staffing issues, most notably with visas not being granted for two of your staff, particularly the experienced spotter pilot that you've been using in previous campaigns. So are you a bit disappointed that you haven't had the maybe diplomatic assistance that you'll need to carry out the mission?
Over the last few years, although we've enjoyed incredible support amongst the Australian public, we've had nothing but hostility from the Australian government. And they do things like, deny visas. They did it to me. It took me 2 months to get the visa. No reasons given. And just on Friday, they denied the visa for our helicopter pilot. Now, this is a man with no criminal record. He's a professional helicopter pilot, and he's a veteran of the Gulf War with the U.S. Marine Corps. I mean, hardly somebody who should be a security threat. But no reasons were given.
And the Australian government has also said they're not going to provide any naval assistance or protection to either side. Are you disappointed with that, or do you just think that's a fair comment for Australia to keep out of what are essentially international waters?
It's the Australian Antarctic territory where they're killing these whales, hardly international waters. I spoke personally with Tony Burke in Hobart last week and asked him about sending a vessel down to keep the peace. He says it's not going to happen, and he said that Japan made a request that they do the same for them to protect them from us. And he said, if I'm not going to meet their request, why would I meet yours? And I said, because we have 20 Australian crew members on board, and your responsibility is to protect Australian citizens in the Australian Antarctic territorial waters. It's not your job to protect whalers.
What intelligence have you got about Japan's aims for this year's whale cull? There's talk that they may be making some kind of compromises or scaling back, maybe hunting different whales. Presumably nothing that they would do on that score would satisfy you short of a complete halt to whatever they're doing.
They've issued themselves a permit to kill 935 minke whales, 50 humpback whales, and 50 fin whales, 1,035 whales. We haven't heard anything different. I can guarantee one thing, though, they're not going to get that quota. We will ensure that they don't get that quota.
What are your main tactics going to be? Will we see a change from the sort of scenes we've seen in previous years, or will it be much more of the same?
The most effective tactic is prevent them from loading dead whales. So if we block their ability to load dead whales, they can't kill them. And last year, we've proven as soon as we get onto their stern slipway, that's it. They're shut down. They cannot continue. Last year, we chased them all the way to the tip of South America, and the Chilean Navy said that if they entered their waters, they would arrest them. And that's when they surrendered and went home 6 weeks early.
What are you optimistic about ever claiming an outright win? I mean, both sides seem to dig their heels in harder every whaling season, and there doesn't seem to be much prospect of Japan cancelling its whaling programme. So what would you see as a success or like a benchmark of victory if, we are talking about Japan never agreeing to stop whaling?
Our objective 7 years ago was to sink the Japanese whaling fleet economically, to bankrupt them. We've done that. We've defeated them economically. They will never recover from the $200 million debt that we drove them into. Now we have to defeat them politically. They're only going down there because of massive subsidies from the government. They're just basically a glorified welfare scheme. And it's really disgraceful that 30 million of that's come from people all over the world who sent money to help the victims of the tsunami, never dreaming that money would be used to kill whales in the Southern Ocean.
What's your view on, it's been reported that some of the tsunami relief money is going back to rebuilding port infrastructure. These are obviously where the whales arrive. So do you see that as rebuilding of existing infrastructure, or is that something that angers you as facilitating the whaling industry?
What I'm concerned is the $28 million specifically from that fund, which is going to for security against Sea Shepherd. It's really bizarre when you think about it. Here's this economic superpower that's treating our little non-profit organization like we're some sort of country that they're at war with, and they'll feel humiliated if they don't defeat us.
And just finally, there's a lot of people have been wondering how far this conflict can go. You personally, how is there ever a point where you would retire, or is this something that you're going to do forever?
We will not pull out of this until we end whaling in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary forever.